Welcome to Spiritual Truths with your host, Kerry-Marie. Today, I'm delighted to have with me my eldest son, Bernard Budell. Bernard will be discussing the philosophical way and how to dig deeper into people and situations to find the why or the truth instead of looking at everything at the surface level. Just so you know, I'm having a spring development group, which is a weekly group for 2 hours on a Wednesday, starting from the 18th of September. You'll find the details on my website, where you can also purchase my book and my cards. Along with that, you can book a reading. So all of that you can find on kerry-marie.co.nz. There's a few little technical issues throughout the recording, but the content was fabulous. To help this podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you liked the podcast and subscribed. Blessings and love, Kerry-Marie. Hi Bernard.
Hi Mum.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, so lovely. So you're my eldest son.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been fantastic to have part of my podcast series, Spiritual Truths. So thank you so much for joining me today.
No, that's fine.
And I'm sure you've got a lot to offer the audience and to share with us today.
Maybe.
So I'm sure we have. So today we're going to be talking about the philosophical way, which I think is really important and I think can help a lot of people throughout their life and the journey of their life. So you can just give us a bit of background, Bernard, about yourself to start off with.
Yeah, sure. So obviously eldest of 3 kids. Grew up in Auckland on the North Shore. Went to Catholic primary school, Catholic secondary school, church every Sunday. Went off to uni, did 2 degrees, a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Arts, which is where I discovered philosophy.
Yes.
Since then, gone on to have a career in FMCG, 3 beautiful children, amazing wife, travelled the world, and now back here. In New Zealand. Yeah.
It sounds like you've had a fantastic life. I'm sure it hasn't been perfect though. Sure it's had ups and downs.
Yeah. Everyone's got their challenges, and actually a Catholic saying that was told to me early, I think by yourself and Dad, and carries through as everyone's got their crosses to bear. So yes, I've had a fantastic life, but I've had my crosses to bear just like everyone else does.
Of course, everybody has that. So interesting about the philosophy. So I'm going to just go back to you're talking about the Catholic situation. So you're obviously brought up in the early stages, quite strict Catholic, and with quite a strict, some of them still are that way today. And then, as you know, our marriage broke down, sadly. And so it changed everything for you. And then your mum changed as well. So your mum broke free from the Catholic religion and she went on her own spiritual journey. So, and she started that for herself, but it took a while to get there. So do you think that watching your mum develop and change, do you think that had an influence on you finding your own way throughout life?
Yeah, I think it was in a subtle way. And that, when it was happening, to me, it wasn't like my mum was breaking away from the church and doing something different or doing anything wrong. It all just seemed, especially when you're a child, everything that happens, it's the first time it's ever happened to you. So it always just seems natural.
Right.
Like it's a normal thing for people to go on different journeys, physical or spiritual journeys, and to find their own way. Because it's not like I've done this before.
I see.
So
interesting.
Everything's for the first time.
That's interesting.
It's just normal.
Right.
And it was fine. And I know to some other people it wasn't normal.
Yes.
It was more shocking for them. But that's because they were older and probably more set in their ways. But it was kind of like, no, my mum's got a crazy spiritual stuff. And it's kind of just who she is.
Right. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. I never thought about that before, because I thought like you would be like everybody else. You sort of brought up a strict Catholic and your mum changed. But for you, it's just a normal thing.
Yeah. And you get through that, then you meet other people that aren't part of the church and have got different views or what have you, and it's less shocking. It's not like, oh my God, this heathen. It's like, everyone's got their own
path
thing they do, and it's fine.
I can remember one time though when you were very philosophical. You just had this way about you, and you were probably around the age of 12. So you obviously started thinking for yourself. And at that time, I couldn't be there for my kids all the time. And I also had a career. I was a career lady as well. And I felt really bad about that you couldn't be there for school trips and special school things that you went on camps, or I wanted to be there, but I couldn't be there. And I still remember in Takapuna, we're going up the ramp, we're going to go to McDonald's in Takapuna. And I said to my kids, I was pretty open with my children about my feelings. And I said, I feel like I'm such a bad mum because I can't be there to be there for you all the time like other mothers are. And I remember what you said at 12, and you said to me, we think you're the best mum in the world. That's what you said. You said, because we are the best judge of what mum you are, not other people. And I thought, wow, how amazing, because as you were thinking at 12, like, we're her children, we should be judging what sort of mother she is, not what other people say.
Yeah, and I think that's for everything. Like everyone's, no matter whether you're a football coach, I think that's a great analogy right now. The English football coach, everyone from the outside looking in saying what a terrible job he's doing.
Right.
Yet when you look at the stats, he's the most successful football coach England's had for decades.
Right.
And the players inside are saying, no, we back this guy.
Right.
Because they know what's really going on the inside.
I see what you're saying.
Everyone on the outside, I mean, it's nothing against the people on the outside. They're just reacting to what they're seeing.
Right.
Right? You've got certain inputs that come in, and then you make a judgment call based on what you know.
Yeah.
And when you're on the outside, you can't know everything that's going on the inside.
Yeah. Well, I always remember you saying that, and it really touched my heart. And it was really philosophical as a child. So one of the things you did at university, you really seemed to have a passion and love for philosophy. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So that all happened almost accidentally. So I started out going to do a BCom in accounting and a BA in political studies, and I finished with a BCom in marketing and a BA in philosophy.
Wow.
When you do your stage 1 papers at university, you have to take a number of different subjects as stage 1, and it's quite great because you get exposed to all these new ideas. And I literally selected papers based on the timetable, so I could make everything work and I didn't have to get up too early. And one of those was philosophy, I think 108, Introduction to Metaphysics, which sounded crazy. And I walked into the lecture hall and I sat down, and the guy got up, and he was this crazy looking professor dude. And he said, all right, so physics is the study of how the world works. Metaphysics is the study of why the world's here in the first place. And I went, I'm in. Like, this is me. I like politics out the window. I'm here for this. Right. And so that's what really grabbed me.
So which part of that grabbed you, both, or?
No, that the whole, why the world's here, because I think it's such an interesting, a lot of the time we get stuck on the surface why of things without going deeper.
Right.
We look at things and people argue about certain things, or we're trying to work out the truth about something, but you don't even go that one layer deeper, the real deep truth behind things. And it was all, saying, you could study physics and understand how the world works, or you could study metaphysics and study why the world's even here.
Wow, fascinating.
Because it is a crazy thing that this world even exists.
Right, tell us about that.
So I think where it gets to is it's a deeper question and a deeper wonderment of the fact that we can even think and exist. Because we could argue about, which movie's the best, or you can discuss, the way nature works, or study the biology of an animal. But you drill down further and further, and at that core truth is, why are we even here, and how amazing is it that we can even perceive things and think of things? And why consciousness is here. Because if you think about it logically, there's no logical reason that this universe needs to exist. There's no logical reason that if there was a universe, that there'd be beings that could perceive the universe existing. So how amazing is it that we're even here for whatever space of time we're around? The fact that you can think is probably the most amazing phenomena, the most amazing fact the world's ever been. And that's where, Descartes, big philosopher, he was trying to prove the existence of God through logic and reason.
Right. And
he found that every argument he made always relied on an assumption somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
So he kept drilling down and drilling down and drilling down. And the story is he locked himself in an oven until he could think of something that was the only universal truth. Right. And that's where he came up with, I think, therefore I am.
Right.
So that was literally the only thing he could come up with that couldn't be disproven. Like, no no matter what, that you exist.
Yes.
And you know you exist because you think. Mm-hmm. And so that was his universal truth. And it became, it's like, yeah, that's the most amazing thing, that exists. Because everything else just spawns from that.
So it's almost like a spiritual truth of his, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like a spiritual truth. And then he tried to build from that. You know, get down to the foundations.
Right.
Find the strongest foundation he could and then build on from there.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So do you think that's why religions exist? Because why are we here? Like, is there a creative force? Where do we come from? Do you think that's got a lot to do with it?
Yeah, so I did study philosophy of religion.
Right.
And so I got to touch on, you know, at a surface level, lots of different religions, and it's always been an interesting thing for me. I think that's one aspect of it, because I think you've got innately within humans, probably from when we first started having conscious thoughts, is pretty soon afterwards, why are we here?
Yes.
You know, or you know, where did we come from? And so I think that's where most religions have a creation story or a creator to answer that question. Then you've got natural phenomena, earthquakes and volcanoes and lightning and hurricanes. And that's why pretty much every religion has either a vengeful component to a god or vengeful gods that are there, and ways of trying to explain that, because they didn't have science and the understanding that we have now. And then the third part, which isn't always there, but is in many religions, is the societal control hierarchy piece of religion. And you get those three together and you can kind of see the foundations of most religions around the world.
Right, okay. Well, you said something really interesting. You talked about consciousness. Mm-hmm. And I'm really into the consciousness as far as the spiritual side of things go. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest that you read some of Sam Parnier's book. He's a cardiac surgeon.
Okay.
And he studied near-death experiences. Mm-hmm. And whether you believe it or not, he's really fascinating to read his book, Sam Parnier. Mm-hmm. And it's all about the consciousness, which is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really fascinating questions, because neither a pure scientific explanation or a pure spiritual explanation for consciousness can be proven or disproven either way.
Yeah, he's really good to read, Sam Parnier.
Yeah.
I suggest you read his books.
Okay.
And he has also YouTube videos and channels and things. When I first got into spirituality, that's something that I love watching was him, because one thing I learned was that it was like, for me, it is a religion in the UK. It has to be a religion, but it's also a philosophy, and it's also a science. And I'm also interested in the scientific side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how it all works.
That is. So how have you found, so you're obviously quite a deep thinker and you quite understand things. So how have you found your research has helped you throughout your life?
Well, I think sometimes it's hindered and sometimes it's helped. So the hindering is overthinking things.
Right.
You know, because while, you know, the philosophy means the study of truth and trying to get to the truth of things, but the world's moving on, whether you're trying to discover the truth or not. And I think sometimes overthinking certain problems mean you miss out on what's happening at the surface level, which is really important. Where it helps is trying to get to the heart of a matter, or the real truth of a matter.
Right.
So, you know, if something's not going well, you know, in work, in your career, you can attribute blame to any kind of phenomena or condition or an action you took. And I think a lot of people will take the first thing that comes into their mind and blame that.
Right,
you know, so a lot of people, how come you haven't got that promotion? Oh, my boss is a dick.
Right, okay.
Because it's a nice, easy...
Yes.
It's an easy throwaway. I always... And like sometimes it's a problem, but sometimes it's a solution, is I kind of go one step deeper and go, no, if it's not, what's the real reason? What's the real truth? And you kind of go down and down and down and down, and you can kind of get to a place of understanding what really happened or what's really going on.
Yeah.
And then once you understand that, you can work on that and build up from there again. You know, kind of like Descartes getting down to his immutable truth, and then you can build up from that foundation.
So would you say, because people, spiritual truths can be a lot of things. So do you think your spiritual truth is like finding what the truth is?
Yeah. I think trying to find out what really is going on or what really happened.
Right, okay.
Not just the surface.
Right.
Yeah.
So then would you say sometimes people's actions is a lot deeper? They might sort of get angry or go a bit crazy or have a meltdown, but it's actually it's like a V coming down, like the surface is there for the water, and it's deep down what's really causing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Right.
you'll see, classic example that anyone who drives deals with is someone pulls in front of you or cuts you off, and we just react, on the horn, you wanker, can't
Yeah.
drive. What's most likely going on is they're not a bad person and they do know how to
Right.
drive. There's just something else happening. It could have been you were actually going too fast. So when they looked across, there was space.
Or
And
that could be horrible.
maybe they are, but you don't
Yeah.
know.
Yes, right.
You don't
Okay.
know what's going on. But we do tend to react. And I think you kind of have to react because, you can't navigate the world always trying to drill down to the absolute truth of everything. The world moves too fast. There's too much going on. So we're designed to react to what's in front of us.
So everybody's doing their best. But
Yeah.
I want to peel back on that a bit because I went to have a supervisor. She's a doctor of psychology. And she said a lot of the problems people have with relationships or situations going through life is projections. And I always thought that projections were something that I put myself onto you. But what it's about is a made up story. So someone will see somebody and they'll say, "Oh, look at you. You got a business. You got all this money, and you own this boat, and everything's honky dory in your life, and your husband loves you, and you got no problems, and all the rest of it." And or who do you think you are? And they can project that onto you, but actually, the person is actually suffering or they're going through their own problems. And I had that a lot with people come to see me for reading, for instance. They turn up at the door and they just look gorgeous. And the husband's cheating on them, got breast cancer, they've got a leaky house, and the son's suicidal, And then from the outside, they look like they drive up in this really flash car. They present themselves well, they're so lovely, and you could easily judge that. So is that what you mean by that sort of thing with like projections is often a problem?
Yeah, and I think we project
Yes.
onto people, but we project onto ourselves and our own situations just the same way.
Oh, that's interesting. What do you mean?
So, a work example again. Like
Right,
I didn't
okay.
make that sale. Oh, it's because the customer doesn't understand, or
Oh, I see.
or I didn't make that sale. Oh, it's because I didn't do the presentation well. Like maybe, or maybe there's even stuff below that you're not even aware of. Maybe you didn't make the sale because someone else had already given them a killer offer because they're going to lose money on, so you're never going to beat them anyway. And no matter what you had done, you were never going to get that sale. The customer was just being nice to you, letting you talk to them.
I love that. I love that. I used to be an aerobics instructor.
Right, yeah, I remember.
You remember? And there's this girl in my class, and she used to always come, and she always stood at the front, and she always had this really angry look on her face. And I made up this story that she hated me, didn't like me. And I saw her at a bar one night, and I went up to her, almost embarrassed to talk to her, but she came to every one of my classes. And I said, and she was so happy to see me. And I said, do you enjoy my classes? And she said, I love it. And I said, because you always look annoyed or a bit angry. She said, oh, no. She said, I'm just concentrating because you're so good at what you're doing and you work so hard. She said, I'm just trying to keep up with you. And I'd made up the story she didn't like me.
Yep.
That's a classic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolute classic. And I think people do that all the time. And in some ways you have to. You're doing your aerobics class, you're wanting to do a good job.
Yeah.
You're scanning the room, you're trying to adjust to what you see in front of you. It's not like you can go, hey guys, just pause for a minute. I need to spend 2 hours really thinking about your facial reaction and what it could really be. You've just got to get on with your life, And so that's why that happens. But if that starts eating you up on the inside, becomes a bigger problem than it really needs to be. I think that's when you got to go, okay, what's really going on here? What's the general truth of what's going on? You can't do it for everything. We don't have the time. You don't have the resources. Pick and choose the things that are important.
But also
And those
other
are
people's
things.
actions sometimes as well.
Yeah, and all other people's actions that are outside of your control.
You remind me very much of your grandfather, my father. He was very much into where the world came from, what made it work, into philosophy. He's into quantum physics as well. He's a man before his time, Dad.
Yeah.
But I remember him telling me lots of stories. But I remember the story he told me that there's a guy at work, and he said he was always angry and he's always in a bad mood. And he said everybody just didn't like this man. And then one day he came to work and he was really happy. And so my dad said, look, you're different. What's the matter? He said, I had these most terrible hemorrhoids. And I was in agony, like 24/7. I was in such a bad way, and I've had them taken away, and now I've got my life back. So see, everybody judged me this horrible person.
Yeah, yeah. And again, if you had understood the truth, but why would you, like, how could you get there? So I think you can't judge yourself for not understanding that, because it's not like you've got the time to drill into that when it's someone else's issue.
Yes.
So you can't, equally, you shouldn't judge the other people. You can't judge yourself.
We've got to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, I remember another time I went through a difficult time. I was quite heartbroken, and I was in this corporate job, and I actually, things came right in my relationships and stuff like that, and I was happy. I was really heartbroken, but we got back together. And this guy at Christmas time, he said, well, you're such a really nice lady. You're such a good person. And it's like, yeah, I've always been, I haven't changed. And he said, I thought you were a really grumpy, horrible person. And I said, oh, really? He said, you always look so awful. And I said, really? Me? And I said, I was just heartbroken.
Yeah.
I was just really sad. Yeah. So easy to judge, isn't it?
Yep. It's a very natural thing to do.
Yeah. So when people say in life, philosophically, treat you badly or something's going on, do you often look at the other side of it or try to?
Try to. I mean,
right.
You're never going to beat human nature. You're always, it's almost like I'm always working against that. And I think when you get into low points, so you're very tired or very stressed or what have you, you kind of revert back to your more animalistic nature.
You do.
So we eat junk food. We stop going to the gym. You start reacting to people.
Right.
So I think it's like it's an ongoing. It's like brushing your teeth. Just because you brush your teeth really well yesterday, you still got to brush your teeth today.
Yeah.
So it's like brushing your teeth. You've just got to keep trying to work at it to not fall back into that trap, while also knowing that it's going to happen because, like I said, there's too many interactions. There's too many things going on day to day to think philosophically about every possible thing.
So when you go through that stage yourself, for instance, what do you do to pick yourself up again? When you're sort of, because a lot of people watching this will be thinking, gosh, I do reach for the wrong food, or I just can't, I'll get that bottle of wine out, or I don't know, whatever I do. What do you do for yourself? What do you suggest for people that they can do? And everybody has challenges in a bad way. So what do you suggest?
I mean, I can only talk to what works for me, because everyone's got to find their own thing, and nothing wrong with a glass of wine. They can definitely help. And in fact, I think that sometimes some of it is I think pause, assess, and then action.
Okay.
Is what I like to do. So the hardest bit is finding that bit to pause, because it's like how everything's so busy, everything's crazy. I've got to solve this problem, or it's all happening so fast. But actually, sometimes stopping is the right thing to do.
The power of the pause, they call it.
The power of the pause. I actually had a former boss of mine, and he said, if I'm in a jungle and I know a lion's chasing me, the first thing I'm going to do is stop and tie my shoelaces. Because you could just run off, but if your shoelaces are untied and you trip yourself up, it doesn't matter that you started running a few seconds earlier, you fell over. Right. You're dead. But you took a moment to tie your shoelaces, then you're going to be better prepared for the getaway. So taking the pause. So that's why I say a glass of wine, there's nothing wrong. I mean, nothing wrong with that. You have a glass of wine and a moment of silence or whatever to just think and try and get yourself back into a settled place.
Right.
Then assess, and that's sort of the philosophical approach that I take, which is what's really going on here. Because the other thing is you could run 1,000,000 miles an hour, but in the wrong direction.
Right.
So you've got to, what's really going on? And if I know what's really going on, I then know what action to take.
Right.
Then, and crucially, the last part is action. You have to then do something.
Okay.
So if I'm feeling in a funk, depressed or in a bad way or whatever, take the pause, whatever that is, and talk to someone, whatever you got to do, whatever your pause is. And,
yes,
but the key thing is then taking action, because there's no point dwelling on it and thinking about it forever. Like, you've got to get to a place of action from that and then do something. And it's amazing how much better you feel when you do something.
Interesting. I feel like talking to you, do you think sometimes people get stuck on the action bit?
Yeah, because they just react.
But they may do the pause. So sometimes people may do the pause and they assess it and they know what they need to do. Like I know people, for instance, that I know I've got to go to the gym, or I know I've got to celebrate, but they never do it.
Yeah, so the action bit is the key part, and you'll find that action springs further action.
Right.
So going to the gym's a great one. Getting up and putting your shoes on. Just put your running shoes on, honestly.
Right.
Like you've then taken an action. You'll find the next part is so much easier. You know, getting to the gym then once you've already got your shoes on, you're ready to go.
Okay, yes.
That's the hardest part. How many times have you gotten ready for the gym and not going to the gym? Very few.
Very few times, yes.
You talk yourself out of going to the gym before you even put your shoes on. But once you start the ball rolling, it becomes... You still got to make decisions. You still got to get to the gym. Then when you get to the gym, you know, your brain's telling you, oh, you don't really need to work out today. You still got to push through it, but it's a lot easier once you've taken that first step.
So it's taking that first step is just really, really important.
For whatever it needs to be, for whatever the action that you think needs to happen from where you are.
Oh, that's great.
It's so hard to tidy your room if you can't pick up the first plate. Like you've got to do the first bit.
That's very good advice.
Okay.
Very good advice. Thank you, Bernard. So have you got any like books or resources or audiobooks or podcasts or anything because I know you love reading.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I don't subscribe to any one of them as being the be all and end all. So I tend to find snippets from a number of different sources. One that I really like, and this sort of helps because I talked about, you know, the philosophical approach, but you can't do it for everything in life. So one's a book by Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a and funny title, and it's written in a really approachable, easy way, but his whole point is you can only choose to give up about a certain number of things. You've only got so many to give.
Right, yeah.
So choose the ones that are the most important to you.
Right.
And so my interpretation of that is I'm only going to spend the time sort of trying to get down to the truth of a few matters at a time.
Right.
Because those are the ones that are going to have the best impact on me and the people around me.
Right, okay.
I don't need to dwell on why that person cut me off on the motorway.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Like, yes, be aware that there could be another reason for it, but I don't need to find out. It doesn't matter. It's not going to make a difference to my life whether I discover this truth of that or not. But the truth of, you know, what's going to make my marriage successful, that is important. The truth of what's going on with my kid at school, that is important. So those are the things you got to choose to focus on.
So it's almost like a prioritize.
Yeah, it helps you prioritize.
So you suggest people read that book, that get
100%.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we care too much about things that just don't matter.
Yeah.
Or what people think. And at the end of the day, we don't know what people are thinking.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I think he uses that as an example, like other people's opinion of you, how much is it really going to impact your life?
Yeah.
Yet we expend so much of our time and energy worrying about that.
Yeah.
It's not actually going to affect you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great one.
I find Wayne Dye's really good.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, Wayne Dye's, I suggest his books. He's really fantastic, fabulous about all that sort of thing, about how to live your life and prioritize. You don't know what's going on. Like, one of the things he says, Wayne Dye, is what other people think about you is none of your business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great quote. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pull Your Own Strings is a really good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Another one that you gave to me as a child and remind me of every time I whinge and moan is Who Moved My Cheese?
Right.
I think that's a very good book. And again, it helps get to like the heart of what's really important or what's really going on, you know? So, you know, you get the one mouse who goes, oh, they moved my cheese and I'm just going to react to that.
Yeah.
And then you got someone out, you know, the other mouse who delves deeper going, has my cheese disappeared or has my cheese just somewhere else? So now I've got to do something else to get my cheese. It's just, you know, and when you get to the truth of it, you can then create a better action plan after that. So that's another good book.
What about Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Richard Carson?
Yeah, I haven't read that one, but I imagine...
I gave it to you to read.
Yeah, I know.
About Life's Not Fair.
Still sitting on my bookshelf. No.
Because I remember you saying to me that life wasn't fair, and I said you need to read that. Everybody should read that chapter.
Yeah.
Richard Carson. So it's such an easy book to read, and it actually, I find it really refreshing. And I remember reading that book, and I just slept like a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a good book.
I mean, it's a great message, and it's kind of similar to the Mark Manson book. Written in a slightly different way, I imagine. But it's that you kind of get the book from the title, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff.
Well, it's also things like Give Other People the Limelight. It's a really good one.
Yeah. It's good stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe you haven't read it.
No. Okay, I'm going to have to now.
Shake my hand.
Yeah. Okay, I'll read it.
Yeah.
Start with Why by Simon Sinek.
Right.
It's more of a business focus, but you can also tailor that to other parts of your life. So he's, he kind of, his YouTube clips generally play in most corporate presentations that people give about corporate culture or management or leadership. But again, it's about getting to the truth of the matter.
Right.
So his whole thing is, if you're trying to convince a sales team to go out and sell a group of products or services, whatever it is, you can talk to them about features and benefits, or you could talk to them about incentives, or whatever it is you're trying to talk to them about. But if you don't get down to the why, like why they should do it, it's not going to really have an impact, or why you need your team to do a certain thing. It could be, if someone says, why do I need to do XYZ task you told me to? Well, if you just tell them because I told you to, it's not very motivating. Because it's just a surface level thing. But if you drill down to the why it is important, do the floors really need to be perfectly clean? Yes, they do, because XYZ.
Right, I see.
And all of a sudden it's got, people understand that the truth and the purpose behind it. So they're going to take it as, exactly. So
that's a really good way to look at things, actually.
Yeah.
So any other books that because you love reading, avid reader, what else can you suggest?
So a very old one that has become trendy recently, but I think it'll, the truth of it's going to help people forever. And that's The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Love it. Right up my alley.
So he was a Roman emperor, one of the last good ones. He was very much a student of philosophy and a proponent of Stoic philosophy. And he wasn't writing a book, to be out there. It was almost like his own journal. And it was aphorisms and examples that kind of went on the same theme
Aphorisms? What's that?
Yeah, like, little pithy sayings that he would use. And the whole central point was, it was around not reacting to things, basically. And that, don't be afraid of death because, before you were alive, you had no sensation. After you die, there's no sensation.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Yeah. So, so what's there to be worried about? There's no pain or suffering.
Right. There's no pain or suffering physically. No,
you're
there's
gone.
none. Yeah.
And some of it seems quite dark. Things like, when you kiss your children goodnight, remind yourself you may not see them ever again.
But it's true though.
Which is true. And it's very dark, but also you got to think, okay, yes, it means about, that is an important moment and you've got to ascribe the proper feelings to that moment and don't take it for granted. That's an important thing.
It's very important.
Right. But then there's other things where he kind of goes on, there's a million sayings about, kind of not splitting the small stuff. Like these things don't matter. This thing does matter and get to the heart of what really matters. So I think that's a great book.
So did he meditate, did he?
No, it was called his meditations. So it was like his thoughts that he would have while he was thinking.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So you're obviously very philosophical and you live the philosophical way throughout your life as much as you can. So how can you help your own children or future generations by suggesting this way of living or looking at life?
I think it's, you can't ram anything down anyone's throat, and the second you do, you're going to make them go the other way.
Yes.
It's kind of just gently nudging at the right time and in the right way to think about the thing.
Right.
To, people react or the child reacts to something, and you just got to choose, is this a good moment to help them strengthen this muscle of deeper thinking about what's really true, and then guide them on that journey, help them find their way, asking the right questions so they can drill down on whatever topic it is until they find the truth nugget, and then help them build from that an action plan, and then help them make an action from there.
So it's almost like a standing back, isn't it? And reflecting and making a plan forward.
Yeah, but you can guide them, you can coach them at the right time to coach them through that.
So do you do that with your own children?
I try to, and it's normally, you can't do it with everything because like the kids will just roll their eyes and, shut up, Dad. But if you find the right examples and the right moments and the right timing, you can do that. And you're not going to get instant results, and they'll probably never even thank you for it, and they won't even realize that they're thinking a certain way because you help guide them that way. But hopefully when they're adults and they're facing life, that it gives them some tools to navigate the world better.
I think you always remember things that your parents tell you. I remember one of the things my mother told me, actually, which is actually true, was sometimes people will tell you not to do the very things they do themselves. Mm-hmm. So what she always said to me, someone tells you not to do it doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't do it, because that's what they think at that time, but they'll end up doing it.
Yep.
So that's one of the things. So not that I agree with everything my mum told me, but that's something that always stayed with me.
Yep. Well, you always told me that you can't love anyone else until you love yourself first.
Yes.
RuPaul says that as well now. So it must be true.
I've always said that too, haven't I? So,
Yeah.
Bernard, what are your spiritual truths? Or truth?
Yeah, I think it is, for me, that there's always a deeper meaning to everything.
Okay.
There's always more going on, and when it's important, you should try and drill down to whatever the truth is.
Right. But decide when that's going to be.
Yeah, be consciously pick and choose those moments and those things.
Oh,
yeah.
well,
There's always more going on than what's on the surface.
Yeah, I believe that as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Bernard, for coming. It's
That's
been
okay.
great, and you've given us some great resources, and have a great day, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Mum. Thanks for having me.
Okay, welcome.
Bye.